Tonight, the skies over the Middle East are illuminated by the fire of an escalating conflict. In a massive, coordinated strike, 50 Israeli fighter jets tore through the darkness, dropping bunker-busting munitions deep into a secret underground compound used by top officials. At the exact same time, American forces obliterated a massive drone-carrying ship, sending a clear and devastating message. The strikes are relentless, and the stakes have never been higher. The commander-in-chief has drawn an absolute line in the sand, stating publicly that there will be no deal, only unconditional surrender. While the administration calls a full ground invasion a waste of time, noting the enemy has already lost their navy, discussions are reportedly underway about deploying a small, specialized contingent of American forces on the ground. As the shockwaves of this massive offensive ripple across the globe, we are left staring into the abyss of a widening war. For those of us who have lived through the Cold War and the turbulent decades that followed, the shadows of the past feel dangerously close. Are American troops in danger? And as the flames spread, the question weighing heavy on every family tonight is simply this: can we still avoid World War III? Let's uncover the reality of what is truly happening on the ground. The Pentagon now reports that hostile drone attacks have plummeted, a direct result of these surgical, yet overwhelming military operations. The sheer scale is staggering. 50 Israeli fighter jets executing precision strikes on a subterranean bunker, a secret stronghold previously utilized by the late Supreme Leader's inner circle. It is a show of force designed to systematically shatter the adversary's command structure. Yet, amid the rising smoke, rumors are swirling about American boots on the ground. President Trump has been explicit in his recent statements, dismissing a massive U.S. ground invasion as a profound waste of time. He bluntly noted that the enemy has already lost their naval fleet and everything else they could possibly lose. However, private whispers within national security circles suggest the potential for a small, highly strategic contingent of U.S. troops operating in the shadows, a prospect that keeps many of us, who remember the heavy tolls of past desert campaigns, deeply on edge. Meanwhile, the administration's decision to post combat footage mixed with action movie clips on social media overnight has sparked fierce outrage. Several former senior U.S. military officials have spoken out, calling such displays undignified and deeply disrespectful to the gravity of the conflict and the lives at stake. But the battlefield extends far beyond a single border. A terrifying new front has violently opened in Lebanon. As the night sky over Beirut is torn apart by devastating explosions, Israel is relentlessly targeting the heavily armed paramilitary strongholds of Hezbollah. The panic on the ground is difficult to comprehend from the safety of our own homes. Before the bombs fall, urgent evacuation alerts are blasted to civilians, triggering a chaotic, desperate mass exodus in the dark. 500,000 people have been uprooted overnight, fleeing the southern suburbs and seeking refuge in central Beirut with nothing more than the clothes on their backs. To understand the true cost, consider the heartbreaking reality of Ila Shahur, a grandmother whose face carries the exhaustion of a lifetime of regional turmoil. Tonight, 30 of her displaced relatives are crammed into her modest three-bedroom home, waiting for the sirens to stop. When asked what she hopes for as the distant gunfire echoes through the city, her answer is a desperate universal plea: peace. Of course we want peace. It is a sobering, tragic reminder that while politicians and generals draw lines on maps, it is the ordinary families who must bear the unbearable weight of this devastation. But perhaps the most agonizing chapter of this widening conflict lies not on the battlefield, but in the rubble of what was once a place of innocence. We must turn our eyes to a tragedy that demands our deepest reflection: a horrific incident at the Shadre Taibeh Elementary School in Manab. It is a moment that pauses the breath of any parent or grandparent who knows the true devastating cost of armed conflict. In the early hours of the joint U.S. and Israeli operations, airstrikes obliterated the school compound. Local officials report a staggering and heartbreaking toll: more than 170 lives lost, the vast majority of them children. The voices emerging from the dust are haunting. One mother, through tears that transcend borders and politics, recounted the desperate search for her 7-year-old son's soul. By the time frantic parents arrived, the entire structure had completely collapsed, burying the children underneath. Witnesses described the absolute nightmare of pulling small arms and legs from the heavy concrete. Today, just down the road from the school, there are rows and rows of tiny graves, freshly dug in the unforgiving earth. While no one has officially claimed responsibility for this specific nightmare, the Pentagon has launched an urgent investigation. Deeply troubling new reports suggest it looks increasingly likely that an American munition may have been responsible. Sources indicate the U.S. is examining whether this catastrophic loss of life was the result of a massive intelligence failure or tragically poor targeting. The school, it turns out, was built by the Revolutionary Guard on a compound that once housed a military base. Yet, multiple locals and a former principal insisted had not seen active military use in over a decade. Independent verification paints a chilling picture. Satellite imagery has revealed at least 7 direct, incredibly precise impacts on the school and an adjacent medical clinic. Weapons experts, looking closely at the destruction, note that the buildings were targeted individually with chilling accuracy. Human Rights Watch has firmly concluded that highly accurate guided munitions were used in the strike. As the brutal reality of the Iran-Israel war unfolds, these silent, tiny graves stand as a grim testament to the innocent lives caught in the crossfire of geopolitical giants. The global chessboard is shifting rapidly, and for those of us who remember the long, tense decades of the Cold War, a deeply unsettling shadow has fallen over this current crisis. This is no longer just an isolated regional dispute. Vladimir Putin has officially stepped into the arena. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the matter, Russia is now actively providing vital intelligence to Iran. They are reportedly pinpointing the exact locations of United States forces stationed across the Middle East. Let that sink in for a moment. An old adversary is helping to locate American targets. When pressed about this dangerous alliance, the foreign minister of Iran bluntly stated that Russia has always helped them. It is a chilling reminder that our historical rivals are constantly working together to undermine American national security and the survival of Israel. As this intelligence flows, the violence ripples outward, destabilizing nations that were once standing on the sidelines. The president of Azerbaijan is now publicly threatening a harsh military response to what he explicitly described as an Iranian terror attack, following alarming drone strikes near an airport and a civilian school within their borders. At the exact same time, reports are emerging of strikes hitting a hotel and residential buildings in Bahrain. The sheer unpredictability of the Israel-Iran conflict is creating a highly volatile domino effect across the entire region, threatening to drag in sovereign nations that simply want to protect their own borders and citizens. And caught in the very middle of this massive, unpredictable storm are our own people. As commercial airports face sudden, chaotic closures and the skies become an active war zone, thousands of Americans found themselves trapped in the Middle East, desperate for a way out. The State Department has been forced to scramble, sending in emergency charter planes to rescue citizens who are simply trying to get back to the safety of American soil. We hear the exhausted voices of travelers who booked flight after flight trying to escape the region, only to face endless cancellations. The profound relief in their voices when they finally touch down at home is palpable. But as they step off those planes and embrace their families, they are returning to a country that is just beginning to feel the devastating economic shockwaves of this very war. But the harsh reality is that this conflict is not confined to the deserts of the Middle East. It is hitting us right here at home, quietly draining the wallets and retirement accounts of hardworking Americans. Just 1 week into this escalating crisis, the financial cost to the average citizen is skyrocketing. U.S. crude oil prices have topped $90 a barrel, surging an astonishing 35% in a single week, the biggest weekly jump on record. At the local pump, drivers are feeling the immediate sharp pain. Gas prices have already shot up dramatically, and industry veterans are warning that if crude oil keeps rising, we could be looking at $4 a gallon very quickly. For many folks living on a fixed retirement income, simply pulling up to the gas station has suddenly become a source of genuine anxiety. We are watching the direct economic fallout of the Israel-Iran tensions play out in our everyday lives. The economic bleeding doesn't stop at the pump. Wall Street is in a state of growing panic. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, which sat comfortably above 50,000 just a month ago, has plummeted more than 3,000 points since its high. Adding to the national misery, a shocking jobs report revealed a devastating loss of 92,000 jobs in February alone. And with the critical Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil traditionally flows, now practically empty as massive cargo ships refuse to pass through the war zone, more pain is expected across all sectors. The administration and Energy Secretary Chris Wright are urgently asking for patience, hoping this price surge will be a matter of weeks, not months. But as the fires of the Iran-Israel war continue to burn, every American is being forced to pay the heavy price for a world pushed to the absolute brink. Tonight, we are witnessing a world standing on the razor's edge. From the terrifying glow of bunker-busting bombs lighting up the Middle Eastern sky, to the quiet, heartbreaking rows of tiny graves in Manab, the true and devastating cost of this conflict is painfully clear. And as we watch the critical Strait of Hormuz empty out, the shockwaves are no longer a world away. They are hitting our stock markets, draining our retirement accounts, and punishing us at our local gas stations. For those of us who have lived through the tense decades of the Cold War and witnessed the heavy toll of prolonged military campaigns, the current Israel-Iran crisis feels deeply personal and incredibly dangerous. We know from history that when the drums of war beat this loudly, it is the everyday people, the mothers, the grandmothers like Ela in Beirut, and hardworking Americans just trying to make ends meet, who ultimately pay the heaviest price. As the Iran-Israel war continues to escalate, drawing in historical adversaries like Russia and destabilizing the entire region, we must ask ourselves the hard questions. Are we walking blindly into another endless global conflict? And what profound sacrifices will be required to ensure the survival and security of Israel and our own nation in the uncertain days to come? The breaking news alerts will eventually fade, but the consequences of these decisions will forever shape the world we leave behind for our children and grandchildren. In times of such profound uncertainty and global anxiety, our greatest weapon is the truth. We must look beyond the political spin, the internet memes, and the talking points to understand the absolute gravity of what is truly happening on the ground. Comment, pray for peace if you hope for de-escalation. And please, subscribe if you believe the truth matters more than headlines. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and thank you for watching.